Hello there, this is We on Wild is One. We're glad you're watching. I'm Eric Nzoka. The headlines. Russia terms accusation of violating NATO airspace as unfounded and designed to whip up tensions, says Russian pilots acted strictly according to international rules. Pakistan's Human Rights Commission expresses shock at the Pakistan Air Force strike in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that killed nearly 30 civilians. They have demanded an immediate and impartial inquiry and punishment of those responsible. Ukraine claims fresh Russian strikes on Zaporizhia early on Monday, killing 3 people. The region's governor says Russian forces used at least 10 aerial bombs in the attack on the city. A group of bipartisan U.S. lawmakers on a visit to China urged greater military dialogue between Washington and Beijing. The group met the Chinese defense minister. Gold notches new record high, about $3,700 per ounce. All precious metals track gains in gold. Silver outperforms, rises close to 3%. $400,000 people evacuated in South China as Super Typhoon Ragasa nears. Massive flight disruptions expected. Thousands also evacuated in North Philippines and neighboring Taiwan.
Following some breaking news on this Monday. Take a look at your screen. The latest from Heather Holmes as she put this out on X, saying, quote, pretty big earthquake just now at 2:56 a.m. That's local time there. Felt a strong jolt here in San Francisco. Did you feel it? And then she says, hashtag earthquake, hashtag Bay Area. Fox Weather also keeping a close eye on this weather-related event as they put this out on X, saying, quote, breaking news. Shaking has been reported in the San Francisco area after an earthquake early Monday morning. Of course, they provide more information there with some hashtags as they are following this developing news. And then the Associated Press following this as well, as they say, quote, an earthquake with a magnitude of 4.3 shook the San Francisco area early Monday, that according to the United States Geological Survey. And as we're following the very latest from the Associated Press, I want to take you out and give you a live look out in San Francisco.
Now shifting focus to news from Bangladesh, the country is witnessing a troubling surge in dengue infections, with health authorities now reporting the highest single-day spike in deaths and hospital admissions this year. In the last 24 hours alone, 12 people lost their lives, while 740 patients have been hospitalized across the country. According to the Directorate General of Health Services, at least 179 people have died and nearly 42,000 people have been infected this year. Experts say that an extended monsoon is leaving behind stagnant water that is an ideal breeding ground for mosquitoes. They also blame the surge on poor urban infrastructure and waste management, as well as neglected construction site. Doctors warn that children are particularly at risk and urge parents to not overlook early warning signs that include persistent fever, bleeding gums, or sudden fatigue. Skin rashes and muscle pain are other symptoms. To make matters worse, there is also a rise in chikungunya cases, which is another mosquito-borne disease. While chikungunya is rarely fatal, it causes severe joint pain and prolonged weakness, especially in children and the elderly. The simultaneous outbreaks are stretching the healthcare system in the country, with doctors urging public to follow preventive measures like including proper waste disposal, water management and public awareness.
Authorities in southern Congo are scrambling to curb the spread of Ebola. The WHO has found that deaths from the disease nearly doubled in the last week, standing at 31. More than 900 people have been in contact with the virus so far. Now a new vaccine drive is underway in the outbreak's epicenter.
Defense against Ebola Zaire species. We currently have 3,500 doses available in the country, with 760 already delivered to Bulape. More than 500 healthcare workers and contacts have received their vaccination, offering them crucial protection. Additionally, a further 45,000 doses are expected to arrive in Kinshasa soon.
A fresh Ebola outbreak was announced by Congolese authorities on September 5th in Boualap in Kasai region. The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the virus has now spread from 2 districts to 4.
Także w warunkach korecznej widoczności, nie narażając załatwienia, czołg może operować w terenie zatrutym, skażonym i napromieniowanym. W wyniku zdanych strat natarcie przeciwnika sławnie. Przeciwnik spieszył piechotę i dąży do opanowania przedniej linii obrony.
Begin with Doha. Qatar reportedly wants an apology from Israel over the recent strikes in Doha before it resumes its mediation on a Gaza peace deal. According to US and Israeli media reports, Qatar's emir raised the matter with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio during their recent meeting. Another report says that Doha has lodged a formal complaint to the International Civil Aviation Organization. The unprecedented airstrike was launched by Israel on the 9th of September in Doha, targeting a building where Hamas officials were meeting to discuss the latest ceasefire proposal, but forwarded by the United States. 5 members of Hamas and a Qatari security officer were killed during the strike, while key members of the Hamas negotiating team survived. According to Qatar's state-run news agency, in its complaint, Qatar has described the attack as a blatant violation of its sovereignty and provisions of the Chicago Convention on International Civil Aviation. The Qatari government says that it reserves the right to take responsive measures under international law. According to separate reports from Israel's Channel 12 and US news website Axios, Qatar is demanding a public apology from Israel for the attack. The reports add that this apology has been set as a precondition for Qatar to resume its role as a mediator in the ongoing Gaza conflict. Qatar has remained a key mediator in efforts aimed at securing a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. However, Qatar may allow Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to save face and allow Israel to be flexible on the language of the apology. The reports, quoting sources familiar with the matter, said Qatar may agree to an Israeli apology that focuses on the killing of the Qatari security officer.
Iran just tested its first intercontinental ballistic missile. Launched by the Revolutionary Guard, it apparently has the range to hit parts of continental Europe. This comes only days before snapback sanctions are set to return. Iran is eager to demonstrate that European pressure will not contain its nuclear ambitions. But this ICBM launch pushes Europe into the direct line of fire and, by default, deepens European involvement in the cycle of escalation that we're seeing right now.
And resident of Kafir Tebnit, Mahmoud Hamad, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister. We will get you more details on that, but shifting focus to the news that we are tracking from the US. President Donald Trump is planning to meet Arab and Muslim leaders on the sidelines of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York tomorrow. According to Arab officials familiar with the meeting, leaders from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Egypt, Jordan and Turkey will attend the summit that will focus on the ongoing war in Gaza region. The White House has reportedly invited these countries to take part in the post-war plan for Gaza and even consider sending troops to form a stabilization force that will replace the Israeli military presence in the territory. The meeting comes days before the US President hosts Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House on 29th of September. The timing is critical amid increasing international recognition of the state of Palestine and rising tensions over Israeli threats to annex parts of the occupied West Bank. The UAE has already warned that annexation could jeopardize the Abraham Accords, which are Donald Trump's key foreign policy, which is his key achievement from his first presidential term. On the same day, Trump is even expected to hold a separate meeting with Persian Gulf leaders from Oman, Bahrain and Kuwait, among others, to discuss Israel's recent strikes against Hamas leaders based in Qatar, which is first such attack on the Gulf soil. It has heightened tensions in the region and Gulf leaders are now seeking assurances from the US administration to prevent further strikes.
Popular music in Brazil has always been an aspect of national culture that exhibits enormous vitality. So we could not fail to respond to the horrors that have been creeping up around us.
We will no longer accept that our democracy is tied to anything. So today, we are here fighting against an amnesty for Jair Bolsonaro.
Logistics are disrupted, and the radio-controlled complex is the only way to make deliveries to our positions. It saves the lives of fighters who would have had to do it either by car or on their feet with a fever. It replaces the fighters.
Without a currency swap, if we were to withdraw $350 billion in the manner that the U.S. is demanding and to invest this all in cash in the U.S., South Korea would face another IMF situation.
해야 되는 상황이라면 대한민국은 다시 IMF를 맞게 됩니다. 우리 국민들은 매우 놀라고
It is true that many South Koreans have been surprised and feel anger over the harsh treatment of South Korean employees in Georgia. But I do not believe that this was a U.S. policy action directed by President Trump. We see it as more an accidental incident born of the overzealousness of frontline agencies, a view underscored by the fact that President Trump allowed the South Koreans either to return home freely or to remain in the U.S. during the case. We regard it as the product of excessive zeal and performance-driven behavior by the departments involved.
우리는 생각하고 있는데
Alright, shalom, shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Rachak, Wadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of the millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, to our say shalom, shalom, shalom. Alright, I'm gonna try to be super brief. Just speaking real brief about the clip ahead and the two clips that come after this little quick session here. And the Korean guy, he was speaking about the situation that happened with the Koreans. They got rounded up by ICE and deported. Now they coming back. Okay, well, why are no Israelites coming back? But that's neither here nor there. So he was speaking like if you go back and listen, as soon as that clip starts, he speaks about money, okay, and how that they were going to have to do a full currency swap, or they're going to face another IMF situation, okay. And what I thought about was two things. Well, really one thing, but what I was thinking of actually, kind of had me paste both the clips together. The one that comes after this and the one before I'm speaking about. But and what's that? And what do you think he's talking about when he says they will have to do a full currency swap or face another IMF situation? He's talking about the American dollar, right? The reserved currency of the world. Really, the American dollar is really it's really the digital system itself. It's not. I mean, of course, all currency is going digital. Doesn't matter if you got yens, euros, pesos, rubles, or whatever. Okay, it's all going digital. But what's the reserve currency of the world? It's the dollar. And so the dollar is trying to hold its dominance, and the only way to control that, the elite to control that, is by going digital, which also falls in line with their whole plan in the first place. And so, I find it interesting how he was talking about that, and then he tried to underplay the ICE situation, because what happened, they chopped it up, okay? Somebody chopped it up somewhere, okay, with one another. And so he's speaking out and downplaying the ICE situation, like, oh, it was just a mistake by the zealousness of that particular, Department of Law Enforcement or whatever. No, it wasn't. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were too gung-ho in their job, okay, and they went and rounded up some Koreans, probably thinking it was some Israelites, okay, because these Edomites are dummies. And so that's what happened. So he's trying to downplay that, like, yeah, it was a mistake. We get it. But the opening of that clip was the most interesting thing, okay, because he was clearly talking about the American dollar, all right, and the ultimate game plan is to go into a digital system. Speaks about that in the book of Habakkuk. Yeah, let me get that. There's a couple of scriptures I wanted to get. Well, I guess we'll also get this too. In Habakkuk chapter 2, I believe it's around verse 6. Yeah, verse 6. Shall now all these take... We probably can read 5 too. He also, because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, and neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell. Who do you think that's talking about? It's talking about Esau, the vagabond, the fugitive. And his as death. Yep. Because he's a man that sheds blood and pursues blood, and cannot be satisfied. And his appetite for money, for wealth, for power, okay, and blood, okay, even it just can't be satisfied by this guy. That's why I calls him as hell and as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And that's what? The digital system. It goes on to say, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and And that's what this fugitive and this vagabond has done. Take things that weren't his in places that he didn't belong. Okay, but it all falls in line with prophecy. Okay, all those things fall in line with prophecy. You know, when you pair that together with his blessings, have to do with heaven, the fatness of the earth can do from heaven above. But he increaseth that which is not his. How long? To him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And that word thick clay in the Hebrew is ibat yat, which means heavy debt. And they are going to, however they're going to do it, okay, they are going to switch the whole system into digital, okay? And so I just thought it was interesting that this Korean guy was talking about that, which he was referring to their situation. But it just goes to show you the power of the American. Oh shit! I'm hitting buttons now. Hold on, let me go back. There you go. Salaki. I wasn't looking at the screen. So yeah, it just what was I saying? Man, that I messed up with that one train of thought. I didn't know my screen dropped down on me. What was I saying? Doggone it. Man, I was mentioning something about I messed my train of thought up. But anyways, oh yeah, the reserve currency and so on and so forth. And speaking about how they would have to do a full currency change, okay, which he's referring to the American dollar, but ultimately the full currency change is going to be what? Digital dollars, man. Everybody's going to be in line with it, okay, no matter what country it is, because the elites are behind it everywhere. Because mind you, they are the banking families, and these banks are everywhere. So there's going to be digital banks everywhere. They're going to act nationally as well as internationally. And the CHIP is the glue, all right, to that digital banking system. Now, referring to the clip that I'm going to play after this, Trump was downplaying the United Nations, and they were speaking about how the nations there were nervous because they were wondering if Trump was going to go at the nations who the nations that are not in line with what the state of Israel is doing. All right, because the scriptures say what? The least of the flock shall draw them out. All right, those that are in the state of Israel are going to be the ones that glue trap to America and the war, World War III. And so they the newscasters were speaking about how they were nervous because they didn't know if Trump was going to speak out against those nations that are not okay and that are not in line, that are speaking out against what the state of Israel is currently doing with the situation. And then with the final clips, they're moving into Netanyahu, speaking about how he's just swearing that there will not be a Palestinian state, which says what? That they're not going to stop their advancements, and they're not going to stop with the Greater Israel Project, so on and so forth. Okay, and what really made me think about all these things is because if you remember when Trump first jumped into office, he spoke about I can't remember what president it was, but an expansionist president. Okay, and so let me see if I can even is an expansionist. I don't know if I can get what I'm looking for. Nist. I don't know. It might be a question. Expansionist president. Okay, but yeah. So he was saying that what we're gonna change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. All right, we're gonna buy. I think it was Greenland or Iceland, one of those places. I think it was Greenland or Canada. Canada. You should be the next state of America, right? All this kind of stuff. Expansioning. Okay. Now this is something that I mentioned once before, because when you look into ancient history, all right, because everybody's got debt, but we're speaking about America. America has tons of debt. Okay, so when you look into the ancient world, when a king has depleted his treasury and whatever else, he has two options, man. He either taxes the people, okay, which helps, but then you upset the people, okay, which they don't care, but it's to replenish the treasury. So you either tax the people, or the main thing that you will see a nation do is what? Go to war, conquer someone else's land, make their land my land, It expands my reach. It expands my wealth. Okay, it replenishes my treasury and stuff like that. Okay, so when you talk about him, when he first came into office, gave that speech speaking about being an expansionist president, what do you think they've been doing? Because mind you, America is the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. Okay, and so what they're trying to do now with the Greater Israel Project and Make America Great Again, that's all expansion, because you see Edomites on either side of the world talking about taking over things and territories and places and stuff like that that don't belong to them, and they're going along with their agenda of expanding. And and ironically, what is it them all moving towards? War. Okay. An expansionist president is a head of state who actively pursues policies aimed at increasing their nation's territory. You see, influence. There you go. Because it's talking about how Trump, he likes that spotlight, which that's what Apostle Tahar is always talking about, man. The comparisons from DJ Trump and Emperor Nero. Okay, just alike, man, because he's what? The reincarnation, right? And so he loves that spotlight. So influence, and that's what he was doing at the UN, right? He was loving the spotlight. Oh, I didn't accept that. I don't know. He said applause or something like that. You know, he was liking it because everybody's looking towards him. Everybody's nervous because of him. Okay, everybody's looking to him for what he's going to say. What is his answer going to be? So he likes that, right? Influence or power, often through what? Military, economic, or diplomatic means. This approach is frequently driven by ideologies such as manifest destiny. How is that in there? Manifest destiny. That's what they did with the Northern Kingdom, right? With the natives, right? Gad and all them. Manifest destiny, which posits a nation's inherent right or destiny to expand. All right, inherent. How is it your right to expand itself upon someone else's territory? How is it your destiny to well, I mean, if you speak of it in that manner, then you got to speak of it in the manner of what? Prophecies, man. Because that's what matters. Not these words here, the prophecy. Okay? That they're going to do what they're going to do in order for the Lord. Hey, that's what it says in Malachi 1. They shall be what I will throw down. Okay? Historically, expansionist presidents have sought to acquire new lands for various reasons, including economic opportunities, which I think, man, I can't remember the portion there that was mentioned about Saudi Arabia. I believe United Arab Emirates with Saudi Arabia. They have what a great deposit of great deposits of oil. Okay, I think what's that? Is that the OPEC Plus? I'm not sure. I'm not that savvy into that stuff. But yeah, I know they have a great lot of oil. Okay, and other countries have other resources that America wants, and they will war for it. But anyways. Historically, expansionist presidents have sought to acquire new lands for various reasons, including economic opportunities. Wow. Look, check that out. Light it up. You see, look, access to resources. See, strategic advantages. That's what they're doing now. And to assert global insert global influence. You have the Edomites in the West trying to expand. They're doing this, they're doing that. And the third thing, they're, like it says, the hammer of the earth. Okay, how will the hammer of the earth be cut asunder? That's what's about to happen. But it is the hammer of the earth. All right, including how it treats what? Their allies, the UN. Okay, NATO, the EU. All right, how they talk to them, how they treat them, how they look down on them. Okay, but these are your allies. All right, and then you have the Edomites at the east. Okay, what are they doing? They're trying to feign themselves as being, because in the new world that they think they're going to bring forth, those are going to be the people of the Lord, and the rest of the Edomites of the earth are going to be, the greatest people on the planet in all history, and is going to remain that way forever in their vain thoughts. So it also reads here, strategic advantages and to assert global influence. Such policies can lead to significant territorial gains, but also often result in conflicts, disputes, and heightened international tension. Yeah, and that's what the state of Israel is kicking up right now. Okay, the SOI is kicking up right now. People are speaking up about what they're doing, with their battle between the Palestinians. Okay, and stuff like that. I believe we mentioned the other week the ICC or the ICJ. Can't remember which one it was. And just countries in general that are not okay with what they're doing. Even some of the Israelis that are living there are not okay with what they're doing. See, and it's causing nations to to rise up and say something's wrong with this. We need to chop it up. We need to talk about this and da 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 da. And SOI is not going to stop. And who's going to back them up when the time comes? You guessed it. All right, the West. The least of the flock shall draw them out. Okay. But also, okay, we just read that. So one prominent example of an expansionist president in U.S. history is James K. Polk, the 11th president of the United States, 1845-1849. Polk oversaw the largest territorial expansion in American history, acquiring over 1 million square miles of land. His presidency was marked by the annexation of Texas, which led to the Mexican-American War, and the subsequent acquisition of California, New Mexico, and other southwestern territories through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. He also settled the Oregon Territory dispute with the Great. We don't have to read all this. I was hoping they would mention the one that Trump mentioned, but it's okay. Other historical instances of expansionism include the Ottoman Empire's conquest, Russia's territorial gains under various leaders, and Nazi Germany's pursuit of that word, that L word, in the, not lesbian though, Lebensraum, Rome or whatever. In the 21st century, leaders in countries like Azerbaijan, China, Iran, Russia, and Turkey have been described as pursuing expansionist policies, often involving territorial claims. Because in order to expand, you gotta what? Okay, you gotta take some territory, but territory belongs to other countries. So you're gonna what? End up in a fight, in a war. Okay. Military operations or the arming of local militias to extend influence. For example, Russia under Vladimir Putin has been characterized as expansionist, particularly since the 2010s, with actions such as the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, see, people are gung-ho about that, but guess what? Putin broke it down when he was talking to Tucker Carlson that Ukraine, Crimea, all that belongs to them. Okay. All that belongs to them, and he broke down the history of that. So he had a reason why he attacked those people. Now, I'm not advocating for Putin, and I'm definitely not on the side of Ukraine, and not on either side, but I'm just making the point, okay? He broke down why they annexed Crimea, okay? And then you had the result of that was the blowing up of the Crimea Bridge. Then eventually after that, they because of the oil, all right, flowing from there to I believe it was Germany. So they blew up the pipelines. They didn't get all of them, but you know. They got 3 of them, which they're set up by twos. Pipeline A's is, pipeline 1 is A and B. Pipeline 2, you have also A and B. So there's 4 pipes in general, all right? But they're seen as 2, and they got 3 of those. They damaged 3 of those pipelines, right, directly from Russia to Germany, okay? And then they entered into a full-scale conflict, a war with Ukraine. For example, Russia under Vladimir Putin has been characterized as expansionist, particularly since the 2010s, with actions such as the annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Ukraine. The expansion of presidential power often coincides with expansionist policies, especially during times of war or national emergency, where quick decision-making is deemed necessary. This can involve the increased use of executive orders and military actions without explicit congressional approval. All right, so yeah, so I wanted to read. I didn't exactly get what I wanted, but hey, that worked though. Okay, to get the point across. Like I said, you have Yahoo saying that he's saying that Palestine or whatever. I forget exactly how they worded it, but they're saying that because there were nations that stepped forward to recognize it as a Palestinian state or something like that, and he's saying that they're not going to be. Why? Because they're trying to take over their territory, which is the Greater Israel Project, and all you have to do is go and look into the territories that are allotted to the Israelites, not the Israelis, but we get it. And so he's using that poster, that diagram or map or whatever, all right, to say that, well, these people are on territory that belongs to us. So we have a God-given right to go on war against them and push them out of our land, all right? And so they're doing what? They're expanding. And the West is their wallet, their back pocket, who always backs them up. And they've been trying to expand as well. And the ultimate expansion of these Edomites, the top elites, will be what? Their digital system and their micro CHIPs. Because that's where it says, actually, we read that, didn't we? heapeth unto himself all people. See? That's their ultimate expansion. They're performing their enterprise, their digital system, their digital age. See? Which is based off technology and sorcery. Okay? Witchcraft. But, pretty much just, I was wanting to speak on, I thought those clips were interesting, so I just want to briefly speak on those. And we quoted a couple scriptures we didn't get, but, we still got a couple scriptures too. So, yeah, you can go and watch the rest of that, what I was speaking on in the news here. And with that, I'll say shalom.
8 months into his second term, President Donald Trump has taken an aggressive approach to the United Nations as he pursues his America First agenda. Trump drastically cut funding to aid groups and the UN after announcing the United States' withdrawal from the Human Rights Council and other agencies, and ordered a sweeping review of America's involvement in the world body. Even as he undermines it, Trump still believes the UN has potential.
There are great hopes for it, but it's not being well run, to be honest.
The mood in the halls of the UN headquarters is grim as Trump prepares to deliver his 5th address to the United Nations General Assembly.
This is by far the most stressed the UN system has ever been in its 80 years.
In his first term, Trump addressed the annual gathering of world leaders 4 times, using this international stage to pursue his nationalist foreign policy.
The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots.
Trump's headline speech on Tuesday will be closely watched.
If he gives a relatively friendly speech, concentrating on his own successes, I think everyone will be relieved. If he gives a very tough speech, especially challenging other countries over their criticism of Israel, then I think everyone will be very nervous.
Richard Gowan, UN director of the International Crisis Group think tank, says despite the tensions, Trump actually enjoys his appearance at the UN.
He always likes to get the attention and get the applause from other leaders.
Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
And I actually think that Trump will be coming to New York not to berate the UN, but instead to talk about his own domestic policy successes and foreign policy successes.
The US president is always a big deal at the United Nations, and he likes being feted and showing up and getting the ceremonial sash and having people, do a little bit of ceremonial obedience to him.
Trump's speech may shed light on the as yet unannounced results of the White House review of the UN and future funding.
Positive reaction from Palestinians, but as you can imagine, the reaction is very different in Israel. We're going to get the latest on that with our Jerusalem correspondent, Noga Tonopolsky. Noga, what more can you tell us?
Well, the Israeli government has responded about as violently as imaginable. The Israeli ambassador to the United States, who is a political appointment, a close associate of Prime Minister Netanyahu, accused the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer of being a new Nazi, a new Chamberlain who is now defending the new Nazis. That's a quote. So as to prevent there being an Islamic invasion of Britain. That's how sharp the responses have been, although they haven't really been substantial. We have not heard in detail from any Israeli leader, for example, how a Palestinian state would endanger Israel, what defenses Israel might put up if it felt threatened by a Palestinian state, or anything like that. It's all been in very, very sharp exchanges of discourse. Israelis themselves, I think, are quite confused by what's happening and don't understand how this recognition may end up impacting them, or what this diplomatic move far away from here may do for Israel's diplomatic standing in the future. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a very sharp speech last night, hinted at future moves. He said that his response will come after his return from the United States, where he's going on Friday to deliver an address to the UN General Assembly late Friday, and on Monday afterwards, so in a week from now, he will meet Donald Trump. What my understanding is that Prime Minister Netanyahu is basically going to D.C. to try and get an okay from President Trump about annexing or declaring sovereignty over certain territories of the occupied West Bank, territories that have been in occupation, a kind of reserve for a future Palestinian state. Donald Trump will therefore next weekend find himself in quite a dilemma. On the one hand, Israel demanding the right to take over this land so as to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. And on the other hand, nations that are very important to him, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, saying explicitly that if Israel so much as makes a declaration of sovereignty over any of these lands, they will consider this a violation of the Abraham Accords, to which the UAE is a primary signatory, and that was a huge achievement of Donald Trump's first term. It's going to end up being Donald Trump who decides what Netanyahu can or cannot do.
Right. And what's so interesting about all of this, Noga, is that settlements continue to be built across the West Bank, with Netanyahu promising to create even more.
That's right. They do continue to be built, but what's happening now is of a very different order. The settlements that are being built are mostly being installed. We're talking about small caravans, kind of defiant hilltop youth, they're called here, settlers who go on any random territory in the West Bank, whether it's privately owned by a Palestinian or unclaimed land, and simply install themselves and say this is a new settlement. Under previous governments, this has been not just discouraged, but often destroyed. Under this government of Netanyahu and many of his ministers, who are themselves ultra-right-wing ministers, some of whom, like the finance minister, themselves live in unrecognized illegal West Bank settlements, this policy has been encouraged. But what could really change the panorama is if Netanyahu gives a formal and complete go-ahead to construction in the zone known as E1. This is between Jerusalem and the Judean desert, and this would simply bisect the West Bank, creating an Israeli corridor that would prevent the establishment of a contiguous Palestinian state in the West Bank afterwards. This is the very controversial move that apparently, so far as we understand here, Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to try and get an okay from Donald Trump to do.
Noga, thanks for that. France 24's Noga Tarnopolsky in Jerusalem.
יש לי מסר ברור לאותם מנהיגים שמכירים במדינה פלסטינית לאחר הטבח הנורא ב7 באוקטובר. אתם מעניקים פרס עצום לטרור. ויש לי מסר נוסף עבורכם. זה לא יהיה. לא תקום מדינה פלסטינית ממערב לירדן. המענה לניסיון האחרון לכפות עלינו מדינת טרור בלב ארצנו, המענה הזה יינתן לאחר שובי מארצות הברית. תמתינו.